Resnick. Hey, Mike. This is mine.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, there is.
Okay, is everybody kind of situated? Thank you. I appreciate it. I know we try our best not to have kind of back-to-back events like this, but it's the timing just works that way. Good morning, again, everyone. I'm joined by Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and the Chief of Staff, Everett Gillison, Police Commissioner Ramsey. Can we ask the folks out there to quiet down a little bit?
He's not here, but he's...
Got it. Director of Public Safety, Mike Resnick. I think I mentioned Police Commissioner Ramsey, Maya Giacomowitz, Lynette Brown-So from the Community College of Philadelphia, and Paul Kind from the School District of Philadelphia. Let me first start by saying that I don't have any information and I can't answer any questions with regard to the incident from yesterday. But we are certainly very, very pleased that very early this morning that young Nyla Robinson was found and is in good care and receiving treatment. I appreciate all of you as the news media and the public for your efforts, for getting out the information and raising the awareness that this little girl was missing. Today marks the actual anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Dr. King, of course, a man of peace and nonviolence. He preferred diplomacy to war, persuasion and discussion to brute force. Sadly, since this great American citizen of the world was assassinated in 1968, more than 1 million people have been killed with guns in the United States. 1 million people have been killed with guns in the United States of America since Dr. King was assassinated in 1968. And as we all know, yesterday was the 1-month anniversary of the mass shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. 20 children, 6 adults killed in that school. And since that day, more than 900 people have been murdered with guns in this country. 900 Americans have died by gun since 1 month ago in the Newtown, Connecticut massacre. In Philadelphia alone, last year, 331 people were murdered in our city, and of those killed, 85% were shot to death. For the last few years, consistently, homicides by gun are generally in the 80 to 85% range. Some years 81, some years 82, 84, you get the point. We cannot have a prosperous, thriving city with this level of violence. We deserve better, and more importantly, we can do better. Since the horrific tragedy at Sandy Hook, we've heard a great deal about the need for stronger laws. I agree. President Obama asked Vice President Biden to convene a gun violence prevention task force. Commissioner Ramsey, our police commissioner, was one of the first asked directly by Vice President Biden for his input and guidance and advice. Police Commissioner Ramsey also serves as the president of the Major City Chiefs Organization of the United States. And of course, the President has laid out that he will make announcements soon about the work of Vice President Biden, members of President Obama's administration, and others who have been asked. Been on calls with Vice President Biden and his team as, again, the mayor of this great city and also as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And we do await those announcements, and I am sure they will be substantive. That's an important step. But in the meantime, by relying on Congress and the federal government, while we wait for them to enact common sense regulations, there are still things that we can do. It will never be enough, and more importantly, we can't wait. I believe that there is a role for all of us, state and local governments, educational and financial institutions, community activists, and private citizens. One of the most effective ways to make our voices heard is through our investment choices in the American and global economies, which brings me to our announcement today. We are proposing a code of corporate conduct based on common sense principles upon which institutions and many Americans can agree. Corporations in the firearms business will be asked to adhere to these principles or risk losing investment support from participating institutions and governments in the values that we all share. This approach is modeled after the Sullivan Principles, the great and legendary Reverend Dr. Leon H. Sullivan, who did much of his work right here in Philadelphia, leading the Opportunities Industrialization Centers of America. Dr. Sullivan, a human rights and equal opportunity leader, developed a code of conduct for companies, and that was developed to convince the apartheid regime in South Africa to change its racist ways. The Sullivan Principles were originally drafted by Reverend Dr. Leon H. Sullivan. We are honoring Dr. Sullivan's legacy by working to end another enormous injustice with common sense ideas and principles. As I mentioned earlier, on December 14, 2012, 20 children, 6 adults were murdered in cold blood by a deranged person wielding an assault weapon. In their honor, we are proposing the adoption of the Sandy Hook Principles as one very practical way to help make America safer. The objective of the Sandy Hook Principles is to influence the corporate behavior of gun and ammunition manufacturers, distributors, and retailers by establishing a baseline standard of responsible conduct. These principles are a call to action for American corporations to heed the basic core values of American citizens and to promote the health, safety, and well-being of our communities. The principles demand action by these companies toward eliminating the substantial and unjustified risk to human health and life associated with inadequately regulated firearm use. The principles address 5 specific categories of reform education in terms of procedures, coordination, management, safety, and technology. The principles have an important exception for the production and sale of guns and ammunition to local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies and all U.S. military forces for their use in the conduct of their official duties. Once a company is notified that its operations are subject to the Sandy Hook principles, that company must endorse and adhere to the principles within the time determined by the appropriate authority, or economic disinvestment actions will commence against that company. Let me read you these principles. Number one, support and promote restrictions on firearm and ammunition sales, transfers, and possession to keep guns out of the hands of children unless authorized, persons with mental illness or mental health challenges unless authorized, criminals, domestic or international terrorists, and anyone else prohibited from possessing them under federal law. Number two, develop and implement technology-enhanced safety measures for guns. Number three, ensure that each firearm manufactured, sold, or transferred includes a firearm safety device approved by the Department of Justice and identified as appropriate for that firearm. Number four, support and promote the implementation of a federal universal background check system for every firearm sale or transfer. Number five, support and promote a requirement that all background check data be shared by all federal agencies. Number six, support and promote states and localities in automating their relevant records and incorporating those records into the federal database. Number seven, conduct background checks on all gun and ammunition sales or transfers. Number eight, develop an early warning system to detect patterns for possible straw purchasers based on purchase quantities, purchase patterns, timing of purchases, types of purchases, or other indicators that the purchaser may be acquiring a gun or ammunition on behalf of another person based on information from vendors, retailers, gun dealers, or the Internet. Number nine, support and promote cooperation with law enforcement agencies where a significant number of guns involved in crimes have been sold or transferred by a particular vendor, retailer, or gun dealer. Number 10, support and promote information sharing related to the sale of used guns among gun dealers and gun manufacturers for law enforcement purposes. Number 11, support and promote the creation of a federal gun trafficking statute to ensure strict punishment for individuals engaging in the trade of selling firearms to anyone prohibited from possessing them under federal law. Number 12, stop the sale, production, design, and conversion of military-style assault weapons for use by civilians, including the distribution of any materials or information that may help or be used to assist in such conversion. Number 13, support the funding, design, and sharing of technology for the production of firearms that have only the latest user identification technology. For example, technology that allows only the legitimate civilian owner to operate that firearm. Number 14, support the funding, design, and sharing of technology for the production of ammunition that allows for identification of the legitimate civilian owner of that ammunition. 15, only manufacture firearms with at least 4 different locations of the firearm serial number, at least 2 of which must be in 2 separate internal locations of that firearm. 16, request information from any purchaser of a firearm or ammunition as to whether they have taken a gun safety course, and if not, promote taking a course at the time of sale. 17, request information from any purchaser of a firearm or ammunition as to whether there is a secure gun locker on the premises of the home or business prior to any sale, and, if not, promote the purchase of such lockers or similar devices at the time of sale. 18, partner with local communities in hosting semi-annual gun buyback programs to retire weapons from the general public circulation. 19, partner with local communities in conducting regular gun and firearm safety classes for school-age children and adults in communities in which the company operates. Number 20, stop the sponsorship, sanctioning, or support for, or the sale or transfer of any guns or ammunition to any gun show operator or gun dealer who does not ensure that background checks will be conducted for every sale or transfer of guns or ammunition at any gun show in which they are a sponsor or participant. Those are the Sandy Hook principles. These principles are reasonable and will lead to increased safety in our communities. This is a goal that everyone shares, gun owners and non-gun owners, businesses, citizens, and our government. I want to be clear. I fully respect the Second Amendment because I respect the Constitution. And the Sandy Hook principles are not in conflict with the rights of gun ownership protected by the Second Amendment. As we saw with the Sullivan principles addressing apartheid in South Africa and the McBride principles addressing discrimination in Northern Ireland, cities, schools, and other organizations can influence important societal change with their investments. Americans have economic power in how we choose to spend our money. We can and should use it in a very strong message that irresponsible corporate behavior will not be tolerated. If companies that we do business with reject these principles, then we should not support those companies with our investments. I am asking cities, states, and transit systems, schools, colleges, universities, hedge fund and pension fund managers, venture capital funds, and all the other organizations that hold significant investments with private corporations to review these principles and consider their adoption as a part of your investment strategy. Two final things. City Solicitor Shelley Smith, who is a member of the Philadelphia Pension Board, will introduce a resolution at next week's Pension Board meeting asking the Pension Board of the City of Philadelphia to endorse the principles on behalf of the City of Philadelphia and its pension fund. The time frame for compliance and adoption by affected companies will be determined by the Board. A similar process will occur with the sinking fund on behalf of PGW's pension fund as well. And second, I will also be bringing a resolution to the U.S. Conference of Mayors winter meeting later this week, asking that we review the Sandy Hook principles and take appropriate action. Collectively, we can influence corporate behavior and make our voices heard. As Dr. Martin Luther King once said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Let us stand, let us be heard, let us take action. Thank you. Glad to take any questions from the press. I didn't hear all of your question.
Could you explain how the divestment actions would actually play out?
As we've seen in the past, again, when we talk about whether it's the regime in South Africa or with the McBride principles, in this particular case, the pension board or the sinking fund would review all of its investments, who those investments are held with, if they are directly or indirectly connected to the gun manufacturers, distributors, or retailers in any way, shape, or form. They would then be notified of, if the pension board approves the resolution, that the Sandy Hook principles are part of the investment strategy for the city of Philadelphia, ask them to sign on. Should they decline, the pension board at that point would then ask its managers to begin a divestment process from taking our money away from any investment connected to those particular companies. That's how it works.
Is there a amount of indirect or direct investment?
It's my understanding that there are certainly some, and I think part of the point here is, again, as many of us saw back in the 80s, this movement, much of it emanating from Philadelphia. Philadelphia was one of the first pension funds to divest from companies doing business in South Africa. We saw that movement go all across this country, in virtually every big city and other cities in America, some states, and other investment fund managers took action. It was significant collectively. So whether or not there is a huge portfolio for the city of Philadelphia, but as I've talked to my fellow mayors, and whether it's Mayor Bloomberg in New York or Mayor Villaraigosa in Los Angeles or Mayor Emanuel in Chicago, if more and more and more and more of us take this kind of action, it will amount to a lot of money. And I believe the industry will have to then pay attention. And so I'm very focused on the legislative side. I'm very focused on the legal side. But there is also a financial component, and we need to bring pressure to bear to change the behavior of these companies to help ensure, notwithstanding whatever other laws get passed, that their corporate behavior is a contributing factor to lessening the safety of all of us in our city and all across the United States of America. Yes, Jim? There's a disadvantage to being killed. That's very disadvantageous, yes. Pension fund will figure out something else to invest in. I'm sorry? The pension fund will make those decisions. Our managers will figure out if they're not invested in X, they'll invest in Y. I want to invest in our people. And I don't want our money going to folks who actually are a contributor to the death and destruction on our streets each and every day. That's what I'm focused on. That's very disadvantageous to all of us. So, I didn't hear the first part of your question.
How are the mechanics of overseeing who's cooperating? How will that work?
The companies will be notified. They'll get a copy of the principles. If they agree, they'll send us something back. I'm sure they'll develop a form. They'll have the principles as a part of it. They'll be monitored for their activities. And if they're in compliance, fine. And if they're not, then the pension board is authorized to take whatever action is necessary.
There's a lot of support for, as little gun restrictions as possible.
I'm sorry?
There's a lot of Second Amendment supporters.
I'm a Second Amendment supporter, too.
Who are against all gun restrictions.
Yeah.
When we saw with the Chick-fil-A boycott that seemed to backfire, and Chick-fil-A ended up making money because people came. If there's a conservative movement against this, do you think there could be, are you worried about any backlash that actually these companies will get propped up by people who come to defend the gun manufacturers?
I can't, it's America. People can do whatever it is that they want to do. I can't do anything about that. I'm doing something about this. This is something that we can do right here on the ground. The Congress will do what it does. We need to strengthen gun laws in Pennsylvania. I'll be actively engaged in that effort. But at a city level, these are our dollars. We can make decisions about how we want to invest those dollars. And if people are not acting in a responsible fashion on something as critical as public safety, then why would we continue to invest in those who are disinvesting actually in us and making our streets less safe? So, I don't know what other people will do. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm trying to do. And I am hopeful that many other cities will take up this kind of cause. This is a time for action, not for worrying about what somebody else is going to do. Troy.
Other than obviously the large gun manufacturers, are there what companies do you expect to adhere to these principles? I mean, a company like Walmart jumps to mind immediately.
They're a big retailer, yeah.
So you expect Walmart and other large retailers to adhere by that?
Absolutely. And, as it turns out, after, I believe it was Tucson or Aurora, Walmart in particular, put out a new set of corporate principles. After Sandy Hook, they took some other action. I'm not singling them out. You asked me about them. So, even the companies themselves at times recognize that they might need to change some of their business practices. These are rational, these are reasonable, these are common sense business practices that, if they utilize them, will help ensure a safer America. I would strongly encourage them to spend the time looking at them and trying to figure out how to comply.
Do you have a list of companies that would potentially be in violation of these principles that would be invested upon?
I don't think we have a fully developed list at the moment, and again, quite frankly, we still need to, the pension board still needs, and its managers need to look through the entire holdings and a portfolio of the city, and again, over on the sinking fund side. So they'll eventually come up with a list and then start providing notification should they pass the resolution, which I expect will be introduced, I believe, next week.
How would you judge whether companies, especially like a retailer, were complying with these principles that, in a lot of cases, require them to support, I guess, actively?
Well, I think you generally know whether somebody is supportive of something and whether it's active or passive, or, you could often get judged just by not only what you say, but what you do. I think that there'll have to be some discussions, but if you're for something, then show you're for it. So we ask you to, put money behind technology research and developing these additional products. It's fairly easy to know whether you did or you didn't.
Was this something that was developed entirely internally here through you and your staff, or was this done in conjunction with some of the efforts that are going on in Washington, D.C., or maybe even through your capacity with the U.S. Congress and mayors?
It really emanated here. It emanated from a couple of conversations recently. The bulk of the work was actually done by Maya Giacomowitz. But a lot of folks, many of them standing behind me, had a significant amount of input. I actually spent some time on this personally, and we did take a look at what happened in Philadelphia in the 80s with Sullivan principles, what's happened with McBride, what was Dr. Sullivan's work all about, what's going on in other cities, and other organizations that work on these kinds of issues. So pretty collaborative, but a lot of internal, intense work done in recent times to bring this together.
That this will just spread organically, I guess, to other cities, and obviously
Hopefully it should move across the country. There are other mayors. I believe it was announced yesterday that Mayor Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, I talked to him over the weekend, I think on Sunday. He told me that on Monday he was going to order a complete audit of his pension system to see what was going on with this particular issue. I would expect that Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa will do the same. I talked to him on Sunday as well, tremendously enthusiastic about this particular issue. So, it's one idea. There are many ideas that need to be put forward to make this country a safer place. But it's one idea with 5 reforms and 20 principles in recognition of the 26 people. Anything else? Thank you. I'm sorry? On public safety? Yeah, you want to stay tuned. I don't have any other announcements for today. There are a number of other measures being actively developed. You'll be hearing about those very shortly. All right? Thank you all.
Trying to get you on the agenda for the massacre in Wisconsin.